Welcome again to another Discover Trempealeau County show. As you know, we've been traveling around the county, visiting interesting people, interesting things that they do. And today we're revisiting a show that we did a few years ago with Wade Britches, and it's Old Main here on the campus of what used to be Gale College. And we're going to be talking with folks that are instrumental in the restoration of the college and what it's going to be used for and the things they're doing to restore it. And the first person we want to talk to is the president of an organization that's kind of doing a lot of the work connected with the college. And this is Eric Moen. He's with the bank at Galesville here. And what organization is kind of behind the restoration of Old Main?
Well, it's actually the Garden of Eden Preservation Society, which is a local 501c3 group that got involved in the restoration of this building over 10 years ago. And we have a separate subcommittee of the Garden of Eden Preservation Society, which is called the Old Main Historical and Community Arts Center Board. And I'm involved with both of those organizations, and we've been working on the restoration of Old Main and are getting close to being complete with the restoration phase and sort of moving into sort of a utilization phase, if you will. So we're real excited about the progress that we've made and looking forward to the future.
How big an organization is this? Do you have a lot of people? Are there people just from Galesville, or are they beyond Galesville?
Well, our membership actually is from really all over the country. We're a relatively small organization with a focus on preservation, and interestingly enough, folks from all around have joined and are members of our organization. Seems like a lot of folks who've either attended Gale College or who had relatives who attended Gale College are quite interested in our organization. A lot of graduates of Galesville High School, Gale Electric, and of course Gale Electric Trempealeau High School, folks with heritage in the area are quite interested in preservation and some of the projects that we're doing.
Well, we're right on the campus here, are we not, of Gale, what used to be Gale College. And Old Main that you're talking about is right behind you see it in the background. Now, as you look at Old Main, there's a kind of a cupola deal on there. What do you suppose that was used for? Is that where the bell was or something for the campus? Or do you have any ideas? Have you done any restoration of that area?
Well, we have done. One of the first projects that we undertook was a roof restoration. So there's a new roof on there. I don't know whether there was a bell in that cupola or not. But the roof has been restored, and that was one of our big projects that we started probably in the late 90s to kind of stop a lot of the leaking that was occurring into the interior of the building.
And how did you get a hold of the building? Did you buy it from some organization? Did the city buy it? Did your club buy it? Or how did you get a hold of it? Who owns the building, in other words? Yeah.
Well, the city of Galesville actually currently owns the building. It's a city-owned building. And the Old Main Historical and Community Arts Center group got together really probably throughout the 1990s, maybe even dating back or earlier than that, and we're in negotiations with the city trying to figure out a way to preserve the building. And so it's currently a city-owned building, and our group is charged with completing the restoration and figuring out what we're going to do with it.
And you have a lot of events down here, don't you? You just had one, I think it was Saturday or Sunday.
We sure did. We had the annual Founders Day event, which has a lot of history locally and dates back a lot of years. We had several interesting speakers. One gave kind of a presentation on Mary Nook and some history behind how they fit in with the organization. One gave a presentation on Gale, and one gave a presentation on just sort of the general vision of looking forward at Old Main here. So it was a great day, and a lot of good people showed up, and lots of fun.
And you do have numerous community events here as well, don't you? We'll be looking at that a little bit later. Maybe we can talk about that as we review the upper story with the Opera House or whatever you call it up there.
Sure, yeah. We have done several community events. We have several that we're planning, and one of the biggest goals, I think, of our organization is really trying to figure out how to utilize the building and what types of events we can host, and what is really the best use for the building. We've had quite a bit of interest in hosting weddings. We have a wedding here in July, and that seems to be of interest to folks in the community. And so I think the possibilities are kind of endless, I think. Just a little imagination is all it takes.
Well, we're with Jim Riley, and he's a local historian, very knowledgeable about Gale College. We're on the campus of former Gale College, started by Judge Gale, in the city of Galesville, in the southwest corner, I guess you'd say, of Galesville. Judge Gale also started Galesville, it's Gale's village. So we're going to talk a little about his life here with Jim. And you're going to tell us a little about the early years of Judge Gale, and we'll go into more of his life as we progress with the show here today.
Yes, well, let's think about when he was a boy. George Gale was born in 1816 in western Vermont, not too far from Burlington. He was a farm boy, and really he himself writes that he wasn't very much interested in school. He really liked to hunt and fish, and this that we see behind us is probably like the landscape where he lived. He helped on the farm, he cleared land, he did a lot of things, but he really liked to break away from that and hunt and fish. He did go to the common school, but he wasn't a very distinguished scholar until he was 16 years old. And when he was 16, he got hold of a work by Sir Walter Scott, The Life of Napoleon, and he began reading. Now that work is a 9-volume set, and he read all of it. He says he read all of it attentively. And what came to him as a result of that reading was that the people who know things are the people who have the competitive advantage. Napoleon was a very smart guy, a whiz in math, and a military genius. And Gale came away from the book not so much a militarist, but a guy who understood the importance of knowledge. And the two distinguishing things about Napoleon that make him a hero, Napoleon had both his superhero side and his villain side. As a superhero, he codified the laws of France and made the legal system and the justice system fair for everybody. And the other thing is, he was important for providing access to education for everybody. Gale walked away from reading those books to thinking there was lots more that he needed to know to give himself the competitive advantage to succeed in life. And so he read, and one of the things that he read was a book on surveying so that he could become a surveyor. He was very good in math himself. And then he decided that he really wanted to enter the legal profession, so he read law with a lawyer, and that's how you gained access to the legal profession in those days. He passed the bar, and then he was ready to move on with his life. And in a real sense, he was a nation builder, and he wanted to be in the part of the country that was still being formed. So he made his move to Wisconsin.
Well, Jim, we're walking around old Main here in Gale College. I know there's some other buildings that are scattered around. Is this part of the college, or was that...
In later years, from 1901 until 1938, Gale College was connected with the Lutheran Church, and these buildings over here a dormitory and gymnasium, and here a dormitory. These were built sometime fairly early in the 1900s.
But the only building that's really owned by the city and that your organization is concerned about and owns is Gale, the old man behind us. Well, let's talk a little about George Gale. He was the guy behind this building, and I think you talked a little about him coming to Wisconsin, and now I think you're going to talk about a little more about his younger years,
Right.
or middle-aged years.
Right. After George Gale had prepared himself to be a lawyer, he moved to eastern Wisconsin to Elkhorn and established a law office. He married Gertrude Young, and he served with the state legislature for a number of years. So he made some really important connections.
Didn't he have a little something to do with the Constitution of Wisconsin?
Yes, while he was serving in the legislature, this was the time when the Constitution of Wisconsin was written, and I think he would have been an important one to be part of that, with his interest in the law and interest in justice and making things fair for everybody.
Well, Jim and I are right next to Judge Gale's grave, right here at the campus, right behind Old Main. Open to the public here?
Yes, it is. Why don't I tell you a little bit about George Gale here? He died in 1868. He was only 52 years old. He had served with the Sanitary Commission during the Civil War in South Carolina, and he contracted malaria. But I think it is also reflective of his interests. One of the things that he wanted to get going in connection with Galesville University was a medical school. So I think it's significant that he came home from the Civil War sick because he wanted his service to be in connection with medicine. And so I think the graveside is a pretty significant statement about George Gale. But let's turn back to his earlier years in Wisconsin. When he left Elkhorn, he decided to move to La Crosse and establish a law office there. He became a district judge, and he wanted to establish a university. Remember that interest in education and knowledge. He wanted to establish a university, but La Crosse didn't feel ready for it. La Crosse, you have any La Crosse friends who would like to know that there was a time when they didn't want the university? Anyway, that's where Judge Gale wanted to establish it, but they felt they were a working man's town, a lumbering town. They just didn't feel the need for a university. So when he was riding the circuit, and George Gale came up along the Black River and Beaver Creek, he saw this area that he thought would be just a beautiful site for the location to found a city. And he bought land. He bought a lot of land, and he went back to the state legislature where he had connections and was able to persuade them to establish Trempealeau County. Galesville would be the county seat, and he established a sawmill and a grist mill. And in 1854, he got the charter to establish Galesville University. He and his friends became the trustees, and it took a few years of planning to get the university off the ground. They opened classes in the courthouse in 1859, and the university had a preparatory department because you have to have people prepared for university work. And they had a university department, and you could get a degree either in classical studies or in science. And from the very beginning, the vision of the university had a law school. And from the very beginning, Judge Gale was right there to teach law. They also had the Gale Biblical Institute for training clergy, and a mechanical and agricultural school, plus this vision of establishing a medical school. So the vision was to be a full-blown university. And in the early 1860s, I'm not sure which year, Galesville University was bigger than the University of Wisconsin. We had 50 students, they had 45. But the Civil War was pretty hard on Galesville University, and also Gale enlisted for service with the Sanitary Commission, and as we said, he came home a sick man. But very early on, the founders of Galesville University decided that they should have a church connection. It was a very progressive school. Women were on the faculty as well as there were women students. It was non-sectarian, but even being non-sectarian, they thought it would work better with a church connection. So they formed a connection with the Methodist Church. And if you think of other Methodist universities started about that time, one was Northwestern, Southern Methodist University, Duke University. All have become huge, thriving institutions, and that's pretty much the way Judge Gale would have viewed this institution unfolding. The problem was, and I can say this as a retired United Methodist pastor, that the Methodists were a disappointment because the Methodists of western Wisconsin got into a dispute over whether the university that the Methodists would support would be in Galesville or whether it would be in Sparta. The dispute destroyed the support base, and by 1877, the Methodists just really couldn't raise the support for it. There were strong Presbyterians among the trustees of Galesville University and also a strong Presbyterian church here in Galesville. So the Methodists handed the school on to the Presbyterians, and the Presbyterians took good care of it for quite a number of years.
Okay, I'd like to introduce to you Gary Olson. He's a retired teacher and also administrator, and you live right here in Galesville and are active in the organizations.
I'm active in the organization, but I don't live in Galesville. I live in Rochester, Minnesota, to be exact. But we have property here, and so my wife is over here on a weekly basis, and thanks to her, I got involved.
Well, it's wonderful that they get people from outside the city, you know. Now, this old main here, was that the main building, you know, from Gale University? Was this the first building?
Yes, it was. However, the university actually started on the square in the first few years. When it opened, started classes in 1859, they were held in the old courthouse on the square downtown.
And this building was built when?
It was completed in 1862, and classes then moved from the old courthouse up here to this site.
Tell us a little bit about, you know, where do they get it looks like limestone, you know, and they more than likely mined it rather in the area somewhere.
Actually, I think it's just a few miles from here in what is called Dale Valley. probably not more than 3 or 4 miles from here. And you're right, it is limestone.
Now I want to talk to you ask you a few questions about Johnny Clem. He was a world Civil War hero,
Correct.
And I believe I've read that the third floor, and you can see the third floor connection there. The first, when he was, well, go into the story about him and how he got here, and when he got here, they had to build a third story because of his popularity.
Well, yeah, he was a young kid in Ohio and wanted to become involved in the war effort, but he was too young. And the story is that a regiment of infantry from Michigan was marching through town, and he asked to join up with them, and they said, no, you're too young, but we need a drummer boy. So he became the drummer boy of Chickamauga, and also was in the Battle of Shiloh, which incidentally Walt Disney made into a movie called Kid Shiloh, I believe. And so the story of Johnny Clem has been popularized here in the 20th century. But once he, after the war, he continued in the military and eventually ended up, I think, second lieutenant. And from there, he came here to Wisconsin and to teach military tactics. And the third floor provided space for them during the winter months where they could drill and do the kinds of things that military people do. So anyway, that's the story of Johnny Clem. He was a military or Civil War folk hero, and has part of his history here at Gale College, Galesville University.
Okay, we're just coming through the door here at Old Main and Gale College, and we're going to look at some of the restoration with Gary Moen. He's the president of this organization.
That's Eric Moen.
Eric Moen, sorry, I'm not very good at names. I do remember my own on occasion.
Yeah.
But there are bathroom facilities here that you put in?
Yes, one of the big projects we did recently was a renovation on the restrooms, and we actually went through and redid all the plumbing throughout the building to accommodate the new modern restrooms, which turned out very nice.
Then we're coming into a beautiful building, or a beautiful room here, and is there a special name for this room, or? Well,
this is the Gale conference room, and we've named all the different rooms throughout the building after different communities. There's a Galesville room, a Trempealeau County room, the Gale conference room, just to name a few. And as you can see in this room, we've got the interior finishing pretty much complete.
The interior, that includes a lot of electrical work here, isn't there?
Yes, we've went through the whole building, redid all the electrical. In addition to electrical, we also ran data cable. We ran cable for cable television, of course, we got to do that. We also put in a sprinkler system, and you can kind of see up here the piping that goes along with that.
Is that in every room?
And there's at least one sprinkler head in every room, and the way that works is it's heat activated, so that if there was a fire in this room, it would turn one of those sprinkler heads on just in this room, not throughout the whole building. And then it would, the fire department, of course, would be called. Several of our organizational board members would be called. And so it's a pretty incredible state-of-the-art sprinkler system. And then that was designed really to protect the building and everything that's in it.
How about the color? It's a beautiful yellow color here. Is that, do you have some indication that was the original color of the building?
No.
The room?
No. The color actually was sort of a kind of a heated debate in terms of what we should utilize for a color in here, and it just turned out that it just got painted without a whole lot of additional input from the board, so there was lots of surprised faces when they walked in to see the color of this particular room. But we decided it was done and we'd leave it, and it's kind of it's sort of I've come to sort of like it. However,
I like it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Yeah, it's very, and it is a period color that we felt go back to the 1920s or so, and that's kind of sort of the period that we're trying to sort of emulate within the building.
Can I ask you, these floors, are they original floors, or are they floors that have been laid over the original floor?
Yeah, these floors here are actually original. It's maple, and we redid the floors throughout the whole building, and it's maple. I think there's a couple rooms where there was some oak, but they sure turned out just real pretty. And I think with the dark woodwork in here, that light really looks nice.
That was original too, the dark woodwork?
And the dark woodwork, I think we figure was probably done maybe in the 1920s or maybe 1930s. We're not really sure, why that wainscoting was added, but at some point that was probably added.
How about the windows? Did you do any restoration of the windows?
Yeah, we sure did. The window project has been kind of an ongoing project, just probably one of our most recent projects. And we put an interior storm window on that can be closed from the interior and opened up for cleaning purposes. But once that's closed up, it's totally sealed up. And the Wisconsin Historical Society felt real strongly about preserving those old-fashioned windows. And that's been sort of an interesting restoration project as well, just because I think modern thinking is to tear the old windows out and put new in. And we opted to try to preserve the old windows and utilize that interior storm, which I think is going to work pretty nice.
Looks very nice. Looks out of the ordinary, And is this room is this available for people for renting or something like that, for special occasions or meetings and things of that nature?
Yeah, it sure is. As a matter of fact, the whole building's available for public use and can be rented for meetings and, as I mentioned, weddings and various functions. One of the things that we have probably to do in terms of work is really to figure out, and to promote some of those uses for the community.
And you have how many? I guess we don't have the time to see each room, but most of the rooms are finished in the same way this is, to some degree.
Yep. All the other rooms are finished very similar. However, they're more of an off-white in color, but they're very similar. They're all hardwood floors, with the exception of a couple rooms. We did have there was some fairly intricate wood trim that we had remanufactured to replace in some of the rooms, but we paid quite a bit of attention to try to maintain the historical integrity of the building and keep that old antique kind of look to it.
Well, I'm kind of amazed. I think they said it was 1862 that this building was built, and we're looking at original floors there that were laying. That's really something out of the ordinary. Now, did you talk to any of the old students? Maybe there aren't too many of them alive anymore, but I remember some teachers that graduated here from Gale College. But do you remember, or have you researched what this room was used for? Was it an administration area, or was it used for classes?
Yeah, I think these rooms were actually utilized for classrooms. We have had, as a matter of fact, about a year ago, we had an alumni class reunion, which was pretty well attended. And as you said, a lot of the folks who actually went to school here have passed on, but their relatives, and there was a handful of folks who went to school here and had some interesting stories about their recollections of the college and how it was utilized. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want to add? How about the light fixtures? That's obviously new, so patterned after a lamp or something?
Yeah, those light fixtures are kind of unique. They actually were in an office building that I owned, that my father had his doctor's office in, and I had them just hanging in my garage, and I thought, oh, those look pretty good up there. So and they do. They're an antique fixture, probably 100 years old.
Well, I guess from here, since we don't have the time to look at every room, how many rooms are there again?
Well, you're asking some tough questions here, Olin, but I would say there probably are, I would say about 9 rooms. And one thing that we didn't mention, that I was just looking at the floors here, there are ducts in the floor. We had a hot water heating system in here, and we did a pretty extensive upgrade to the heating and air conditioning. So we added air conditioning, so this building is actually air conditioned, and that was also a pretty significant renovation that I think is going to make the building quite usable, because not only can we heat it, we can cool it, we can control humidity in the building, so it's going to be set up for any use that we can imagine.
Well, where do we go next?
Well, I think we're going to go up to the history library and take a look at that.
Is that on the upper third floor?
That is on the second floor. Yep.
We go up some steps that students used to climb on, right?
That's right.
Well, we're talking to Gary Olson on a rather unique little corner here of Gale College, Old Main and Gale College. Gary, what is this being used for, and what is it going to be open for the public? When is it going to be open, and what are the things you're going to provide from this area?
Well, this is the Old Main History and Genealogy Library, and as the name implies, it's going to be a storehouse for historical documents, photographs, all the things to preserve the history of Galesville, Galesville University, and the immediate area around Galesville. And we have just started collecting items and loading them into our computer software package. So if you look down the road 3 to 5 years from now, hopefully less than that, we'll have items identified and listed in our computer. People can come in and do a search on a particular topic. It could be on Old Main, it could be on the city of Galesville, it could be on a particular school, it could be on a particular family. And they can do a search on using the computer and the software package, and then in these filing cabinets you see behind me here will house a lot of that information. Now, you mentioned there are no books, and this is the library where the books, and that's you're absolutely right. And that will come, but we have to build some bookshelves, probably above the filing cabinets, so as we are collecting items, then we can store them in this room. And a timeline, tomorrow, sometime.
Well, you got some big plans, and so it'll be great for the future. You know, genealogy is tremendous. Now, you've got somebody working back here. I recognize Debbie. Maybe you could introduce her and what's she doing? I think she said she was a volunteer. I thought she would work for State Farm. I thought she runs State Farm. That's where we got her insurance.
Well, she can not only run State Farm, but she is also, and this is Debbie. Debbie is on our finance committee, and she is also on the marketing committee. And I think right now what she's doing is loading into the software package a list of the volunteers and donors, and doing the kinds of things that need to be done, and only volunteers can do that, because we don't have a big budget.
Volunteers have it in their heart, you know. They're always enthusiastic. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking again with Eric Moen. He's going to explain this room, what it's used for, what the name of the room is, and maybe what it was used for back in Judge Gale's time here at Gale College.
Well, Olin, the room is, we refer to the room as the Gale Conference Room. And when we took the building over, on this back wall there was actually a large blackboard. And so that would indicate to me that at some point this was a classroom. And we did a pretty extensive renovation, of course, throughout the building. And this room in particular was missing all the oak trim. And so as you look around this room, all the oak trim in here has been milled to basically replace the trim that had been ripped out of here at some point. And that was actually just done in Strum locally. And it's beautiful. And we anticipate that this room would be a meeting space perhaps, and could be utilized for many different things.
Wow, this is what, the auditorium here, Eric?
Yeah, it sure is. This was one of the first projects that we started working on in the restoration of the building. We kind of started at the top and worked our way down.
This is Johnny Clem's story, third story here. Let's walk up to the front a little bit, get a glimpse of things. And I noticed as we walked in, there was a plaque recognizing Ken and Helen Coop for the apparently big donators for the auditorium and other things in the building here, Old Main.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, Ken and Helen Coop and their family were very important in terms of putting this whole project together. Ken spent a lot of years in his retirement trying to figure out how to get this building restored, and has certainly made quite a large financial commitment to make that happen.
Where do you? This is a beautiful building. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But how do you get money? You got a lot of things going here in this building. It takes a lot of money. How can people donate? You're open to accept donations, and how do you get donations?
Sure. Well, the Garden of Eden Preservation Society is our tax-exempt parent, if you will, of the Old Main Historical and Community Arts Center. And so folks, when they make a contribution, it's tax deductible, and that helps, of course. And then we've got our board has been very actively fundraising and working on building funds for this project. And I mentioned Ken Coop, he's been involved with it. We've had just really numerous folks over the years make significant contributions. We've named some of the rooms. We've listed names of donors on some of the various rooms I think you've seen. The Bill and Wilma Hampy family recently, about a year ago, donated a couple large pieces of real estate, a couple homes to us that are in the process of selling that will fund an endowment fund called the Old Main Today and Tomorrow Fund. And that fund will actually provide some dollars for ongoing utility and maintenance expense here. And so the fundraising piece is always that's our biggest job in many respects, but it's a fun part of it, and there's been a lot of generous people out there who are willing to support our program here.
Well, let's talk now just a little bit about this room. It's called the auditorium. What was this in Judge Gale's day? Was this a classroom, or was it an auditorium? Was the stage here, or was the stage put in by you?
Well, the stage was put in, we speculate, probably maybe in the 1930s, just based on the construction of the wood here. And the floor, actually, we put this maple floor was the only floor in the building that was new. We replaced that. And you know, I think the use of this room has always been an auditorium. You know, it was this is the third floor of the Old Main. It was an addition to the building that was done in the 1880s, and so it's hard to say what all the uses have been, and we anticipate that it'll be used for many different events and dramas.
Do you have like plays, or do you have musical events and things like that up here?
We have done a few of those. We're planning on doing a lot more of them.
What's your seating capacity? You know, for how many can you get in here?
You are asking some tough questions, but it's around 100 people.
This is a nice room. I mean, you walk in here and you say, "Wow!" You know, I don't know what it is. I think it's all the lights from all the windows you have around, and just the beauty of the decoration of the room. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely kind of our centerpiece. It always gets a lot of wows when we come through the building. They come up here and walk through that door. It definitely has a wow factor to it.
Well, I know that you got to run because you got obligations back at the bank. So we want to thank you very much for participating in today's program, and we'll kind of wrap it up here with two of your friends that are with us today.
Sounds good, Olin. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, Gary, we saw a lot of things today on our little tour here of Old Main at Gale College. I think they talked about 9 rooms downstairs being completed, and the beautiful auditorium that we're sitting in here. What percent of the work have you got done? You know, of the total? It seems to me, looking at it, you'd have about 95% done. But then I got another question to ask you. Is what are the uses? What are your proposed uses? What are the things for the future? What's your vision for the future?
Well, as to where we are as far as restoration of the building, it's some 2/3 or more, 75%. There are things that we need to do, and the big ticket item is that we need to have an elevator so the people don't have to walk 3 flights to get up here to the auditorium. When you're asking about the future, I think the name itself, Old Main Historical and Performing Arts Center, says it all. We're here to honor and preserve a lot of the past, but we live in the present. And performing arts is a way of celebrating the present through music, song, and dance. And what a better place than in this auditorium. And I think that's what we expect to happen. It's been said a lot of different ways. You know, you honor the past, you celebrate the present, and you embrace the future. And I think those 3 things are all part of the mission of Old Main.
Judge Gale was all about education and knowledge and building a community. And when we celebrate the arts in connection with celebrating our history, it comes together. And I think we'll also be looking at some scientific and general interest presentations that just bring that whole Gale vision together as still kind of a mini university in a small town setting where we can just get together and have fun doing this. And we don't have to worry about our grade point.
Well, this kind of brings back a little nostalgia for Wade and I. Wade's been the director today. But we were sitting about in the same place, but on the floor, if I remember, and nothing was done in this room a number of years ago. Kenny Coop was sitting in one chair, and I forget her first name, Mrs. Judge Twesby, was sitting in the other chair, making kind of a wrap-up. Dorothy, making a little projection of the future, which has now happened, here in this auditorium. Is there anything else you'd like to say to as we wrap up the show today?
Well, I think the other thing we might emphasize that, again, is part of the name, community. And community means not only those people living here in Galesville and the surrounding area, but I would like to think it includes all of those who have connections to Galesville and Galesville University. Either they attended school here, they lived here for a while, and they need to be thought of as part of our community. And when you're part of a community, you have some ownership, and you need to support, and support not only with your presence, but also with your pocketbook. And hopefully that will happen, because the more money we have, the more things we can accomplish in a quicker time.
And I like to think that Old Main is a place that can tie us all together, even the ones who have moved to Galesville the most recently or just come to Galesville because they like Galesville, has a place and can be part of the story that connects with Galesville, southern Trempealeau County, and Old Main.
Well, with that, I guess that kind of wraps up our show for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you real soon on the next Discover Trempealeau County show.